In the modern economy, refined oil has an important place in fueling our everyday activities and production on a large scale. It can be sold in forms such as petrochemicals or petroleum and has a vast geographical reach with consumers, whether it be multinational businesses or people using it for personal travel spread across the globe. I'll also be talking about why this market is inefficient in terms of welfare maximisation. Demand for refined oil is historically very inelastic, which can be seen in the steep nature of the demand curve. And this is because of the increased prevalence of complements such as cars in the 20th century and the lack of substitutes. In 1973, for example, the significant increase in the price of oil led to only a proportionately small decrease in demand. In recent times, however, the development of substitutes such as biofuel and fuel-efficient cars are contributing to an increase in elasticity. If we were to graph the utility function of a typical consumer, we would get a U-curve like this, convex to the origin. Given the utility function and budget constraint, we can find the optimal consumption where the two curves are tangent. On the supply side, we see both midstream refineries and downstream retailers, often operating under big names like BP and Exxon. The production function is characterized by fixed proportion. So, to produce 1 unit of oil, for example, you might need both the machinery and labour in the form of engineers to maintain and operate them. Given the generic cost equation and some values, we're able to graph the cost curve. To find our cost minimization, we find the point where our production function and isocost curve meet, which is at the point 4,8. In terms of the distribution of buyers and sellers, you're probably used to seeing these brands. So because there's only a few major sellers, many consumers, and a somewhat differentiatable product, the market is characteristic of an oligopoly. This means that the demand curve is kinked, because if one firm raises the price, they'll suddenly find they lose a lot of consumers, whereas lowering it will just lead to an influx of other firms also lowering their price. Profit is therefore maximised at the point at which marginal cost equals marginal revenue and where the demand curve kinks, so at quantity 30 and price 10. In this market, producer surplus supersedes a substantial amount of consumer surplus, because in order to maximise profits, firms don't produce to their full capacity. There is some competition, especially in the modern downstream market, that offsets a bit of the deadweight loss. Finally, information in the market for refined oil is asymmetric, meaning that pricing strategies such as premium pricing are easily carried out. While there are some positive externalities, they're often weighed out by the negative externalities, most prominently environmental damage. This is, however, being addressed in the form of regulations by governments.